Hi guys, today we're going to have a look at garden edging, and garden edging is something that helps to finish off the border and create your sort of final frontier for your border, and that of course is very important to make your border look good and make your garden look good. So we're going to look at a few of the options. A few of the options would be starting at the beginning with trench digging with a simple spade, and that's the cheapest, it's free, and then obviously to do that, you just need to, if you're going to do a curve line using a piece of hose pipe to usually sort of try and get that curve, you're looking for a flowing curve, not a wiggly curve, because flowing curves look a lot more effective than the wiggly curves. And if you're going to do a straight line, then a straight edge with a long timber is not a bad idea to get that straight edge. It's a simple matter of getting a sharp spade and slight angle, probably around about sort of 70 to 80 degree angle into the soil, and that's pretty much. If you do it too steep, that border will actually probably more likely collapse. On the slight angle, if you do it on the slight angle, it will maintain its shape a lot better. Some of the downsides to edging with spades, obviously, there's a bit higher maintenance involved. You've got to be careful that you don't extend that border too much. So what will happen over a few years is sometimes when you go there to refresh that edging, you can take away a little bit more soil and you end up with a lot larger sort of border than maybe that you intended. The benefits are, with doing it natural like that, one, it's free, and two, if you make a mistake or if you decide to change your mind in the end, it's easy to fix. It's not permanent, and so not like concrete. So that's the cheapest. Obviously along the cheap lines too is you can just have a border of plants, something like a mondo grasses or grasses at the front, or a ground cover clipped. That will also give you the edge. You can also just end up spraying a bit of a border and just having a dead bit. So it is nicer to have a kind of a more defined edge with the spade though. So moving on from there, you've probably the cheapest material next to do a border is timber, and you've got different ways to use that timber. You can use it in long strips of wood, and you can do straight lines with it. Obviously when you're using tannalized timber or timber that is resistant like macrocarpa to the rotting and the moisture. So with that, you just have to sort of basically pretty much dig the trench, put the timber inside the trench, but then you need pegs to secure that timber. So you're putting pegs every so often so it doesn't just fall over. If you're going to do curved borders with the long straight edge, then you've got a matter of cutting those where it goes into the curves. You put slight cuts with it, usually with a skill saw, along that edge where it's going to curve, and then you can more easily bend it. And obviously if the wood is moist, wood will tend to bend. So you can use that. You can do that sort of with the 4x1s, 100 by sort of 25 sort of bits of wood. Any thicker like 4x2s becomes a little bit trickier. So after that, you've got big railway sleepers that some people use. Obviously these are big chunky bits of wood that you can place, and you can use those in a sort of design to give you more of a rustic look. And also things like ponga logs or logs just placed down. These sometimes are available in different, you might have some logs that you just place down. It can look very natural. It's not a polished off edge, but it does give you a defined edge. And then from the horizontal timbers, you can go to some vertical timbers. You can put vertical timbers in, and that can look a little bit different and look quite nice. However, most of the commercially available ones in the nurseries are little bits of thin timber, and they've wired them together. Those don't look particularly good, and they tend to sort of, look a little bit sort of a little bit rubbish after about sort of 10 years in the ground. But the upside of that is they do hold back some of the soil. You still have to concrete those ones in generally, although they can be pegged with wooden stakes. They normally are sort of concreted in as well. So moving on from the wood timbers, you've then got a range of strips of plastic or metal which can be placed in. So these are some of the prefabricated plastics that can be used, the composite composite plastics that are used, and they can be placed in a trench. Again, they have to be staked, and to firm them in, and various plastics. I don't like these. The cons with these are they have a lot of tensile strength in them, so they come wrapped up in a big circle. Try and pull them apart and they'll want to go back into that circle again, so I tend not to use those. Again, they look a little bit cheap, and don't sort of do your desire, what you really want them to do. Moving on from there, you've got something which is a little bit better. You've got which is actually a lot better. It's the steel and the aluminium. So it comes in a few different types. You've got sort of basic, maybe aluminium strips if you can get hold of them, and then you've also got iron, which can be used, and it'll rust, like I think it's called Corton steel, which has a nice natural sort of rusting ability, which actually is supposed to protect the metal. It's a bit of an oxidized layer, and you've got to be a little bit careful with those, not to put them too near the concrete, just in case that oxide will wash off onto the concrete and stain it. But generally, that's a bit more of a contemporary look. It's a bit more expensive, obviously, than the plastic, and can give you a certain look for modern contemporary gardens. Again, it can come in lengths of 1 meter to 2 meters, and if you can get longer than that, probably the better. It has to be staked. Sometimes they're interlocking, but generally it'll have little spikes on the end of the metal just to push it in the ground. Some of the problems obviously will be some of the steel can be sharp on your hands, and you've got to be a little bit careful. Upside, it's easier to install and can look quite effective, and it gives you quite a clean edge. So moving on from those types, you've then got concrete. Concrete is a versatile material. That's why it's used so much in landscaping, from driveways to paths. It's sort of durable, not too expensive, and you can do a few things with it, like colour it and print it. So starting off there, you've got the first types of mowing strips that you'll do would be basically DIY concrete strip, which is dig out a trench, probably around about 20 centimetres by about 10 centimetres deep, and then you can place your concrete inside. But you really have to get a proper edge on it. You need to get some to plan it with some wood, some thin wood. So these are the forms that will basically form the cast of it. So you're going to place thin bits of wood in the trench, peg them, and that's going to become the sort of the mold, if you like, to make it nice and smooth. So yeah, that's a good way to do it. And normally your width of your mowing strip or your edge will be about 20 centimetres, no less than 10 centimetres, because then it's going to get too thin. Now with concrete, one of the things with concrete is it does expand and contract with the heat, and if you don't allow expansion joints in that concrete, it will crack. So quite often it's a good idea for about every 2 meters or so to put a little cut in it, or to leave a bit of a joint to allow that expansion, and that way your concrete mowing strip will last a lot longer. Like I said, you can colour it, and you can do different profiles with it. Now it is permanent. That's one of it is upside and downside. So if you decide to change your border later on, usually it's basically you'll have to start all over again and knock that all out. So you've got to be sure that your border is exactly how you want it. So that's why it's always good to start off maybe with just a dug border first before you get 100%, and then you can put your permanent borders in. Moving on from the concrete, you've got some various things like cobbles and bricks, which can be placed, and these can look quite decorative because they're obviously a unit paver, give it a little bit more, they can be tied into, say, maybe what the same brick is what you've got for your house, or colour schemes. Same process though, that the cobble has to be actually placed in firmly, otherwise if it's not placed in firmly it can move. So it's the same with cobbles. When you put in cobbles or bricks in, the edges of those cobbles have to be restrained somehow, and usually that's with a little bit of a layer of concrete to make sure those pavers and cobbles don't move. So that's just a similar process. You can use bricks and cobbles, and that's a nice look. And moving on, therefore you've got similar to that, you've got pavers, larger pavers, and sometimes when you use larger pavers, you can use these larger pavers also as paths. So your path can form a part of the where the plantings are contained. On the other side of the path is where the grass is contained. So that's not a bad way. In some of the larger gardens where you can, when you can do that and the design allows for it, that's a great way to go. It's sort of hitting two birds with one stone. So apart from that, you've got your big flake stones in in natural, say Asian style, Oriental style gardens. They quite often don't seem to have any sort of solid edging. They tend to use stepping stones and gravel, and the rest is just a natural planting with moss. It's quite a more of a feature, say, in Western and contemporary gardens where you have lawn, and then that lawn needs a sort of edge to it. And of course, the edges and shapes of that lawn can create some just a nice pattern, and it can sort of lead the eye, and is quite a nice way to go. Okay guys, the last option I'm going to put in there is one of rocks and boulders. So these can look really, really attractive in a border, and one of my preferred options actually is this with the natural stone or boulders used. Some of the cons are actually just getting hold of these rocks and boulders can be a bit tricky, and so you have to sort of source them locally, and not always easy. And just a bit of sometimes the weight used, but give you a very natural look. And I think that's a good way to go. They also need fixing. And of course, if we look at the various gardens throughout Europe and Asia use a lot of stepping stones and rocks, very natural looking, and can be incorporated relatively easy in curves or straight lines, but generally used in curved borders. Right, okay guys, I think that's pretty much it. I think I've covered all the bases. If you've got something that you've used in your garden as a garden edge and you could recommend it, or something you've used before and said you weren't happy with it, then leave it down in the comments, and like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.